Hi everyone, it's Joe here from Lawn Solutions Australia and welcome to this episode of Turf Talk, where today I'm joined by the owner, the founder of Twinview Turf, which is a turf supply business in southeast Queensland, Max Stephenson. Welcome, Max.
Joe, thank you for having me along.
So what we'll do now is, for everyone that's in the Australian turf industry, they probably know Max. They probably know Max quite well. For those that are probably outside the turf industry, you may not have heard of Max, but you've probably seen some of his product on a bunch of sporting fields and racetracks around Australia. They're a very prominent business in the sports and commercial turf world, which we'll get into. But you weren't always a turf farmer, Max. So take us back not that long ago. When you started farming and getting into it. What do we grow?
My parents were growing tobacco, and then when I left school, we moved into pineapples. And we grew pineapples until the early 90s, and we had a bad experience because you grow pineapples and send them to the market and get money. Some decisions were made with imports and outside our business that meant we were going to lose a lot of money, so I decided I wanted to get into something that was not ever going to be destroyed by imports again. Right. So I saw a neighbour growing a few acres of turf, and I decided we'd grow turf, and we ended up eventually growing about 500 acres of turf.
And have you always been in the region you're in now, just north of Brisbane?
I've been where we are now since I was 4.
Okay.
So a fair while.
And what was the tobacco industry like, or what you remember of the tobacco industry? Was it a pretty good game back then? Or
the tobacco industry was a good game. The pineapple industry was a good game until towards the end. Farming, there were crops that were very easy to manage and very predictable, and you always knew where you were going to sell them. You just didn't know what money you were going to get.
Yeah, right. So,
but at least with turf, we have some control over our money.
Tobacco. Now, when someone says tobacco, obviously I know nothing about tobacco farming, but was it a highly regulated industry considering the nature of the product then, or?
It wasn't then. Yeah. We all had quotas. We grew a quota. Yeah. We had so many tons we grow, but it didn't become regulated until later on. Right. And now you're better off getting caught growing marijuana than you are growing tobacco.
Okay, I thought it would be getting to that point now. It'd be pretty difficult. So tobacco, pineapples, and now turf. So your neighbour grew a bit of grass?
One of our neighbours grew about 12 acres of grass.
And you thought I'd give it a crack?
Thought I'd give it a crack. So we planted about 5 acres for our first block and 7 acres in our second block, and
on the block you are now.
So as we farmed out pineapples, we planted turf in behind the pineapples.
Right. And what was the first turf crop? What did you start with? Just green cooch?
We started with Greenleys Park, and then we planted some wintergreen, and then after 5 or 6 years, we tried some Santarana. Yeah. We grew some CT2. And then we started growing golf course greens, putting green grasses. Yeah. There's one farmer in Queensland growing it, and I reckon I could do better than him, and we ended up doing better than him, and we're the only growers of golf course putting green grass in southeast Queensland, and actually in Australia.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd be one of the few in
Australia. Of warm season grasses.
So you're the only turf production business now that produces grass that you can harvest and supply straight to a golf green?
For warm season.
Yeah. Yeah. So what year did the turf business start? How long are we talking now? How long have you been in business in turf?
We sold our first turf on about the 6th of June in 1995.
Right.
And that was a massive order. It was for 1,025 square metres. I remember it vividly.
And how did you go harvesting it? Was it a Ryan?
No. Lucky we never started with a Ryan.
Okay.
We had a Simpson, a locally made turf harvester, like a Kesmac and like a Brower.
Right. And you mentioned golf greens. How soon into growing grass did you start to specialise in golf course and sports turf? Was that something you jumped into straight away, you saw a market for straight away?
We started in the sports turf industry probably in the late 90s, fairly early in the game there. We saw a niche in there. I saw an opportunity there. I got friendly with someone that was involved in it. Mm-hmm. And then I employed a salesman, and he played in that market a lot. He played in that sports turf market a lot.
Yeah.
And we just ended up getting involved in building and bought more equipment, and then we got into renovation and maintenance and more building, and it just sort of snowballed into what it is today.
So I mentioned before, people outside the industry may not know you, but they would have seen your products. So racetracks, sports fields, Twinview Turf's on how many of these now?
We do Suncorp Stadium in conjunction with Strathayr.
Yeah.
We grow the replacement turf for Strathayr, for Suncorp. We're in the process of doing the Gold Coast racetrack at the moment. Right. We do a lot of community sports fields in Brisbane and the Moreton Bay region.
Right. And you got to be pretty specialised to grow sports turf. For those that don't know, the retail turf market is you're just harvesting, you're putting on a pallet, you're delivering it to site. But sports turf requires a lot more equipment, a lot more investment, and probably a lot more skill in a lot of areas to get it perfectly right. So what sort of equipment, machinery are you using to get these sports surfaces right?
It's more in the construction of the sports field that you need all this specialised equipment. We use, we've got all our own laser gear and 3D gear so we can make fields whatever shape people want. Yeah. And we just progressed into it, and sometimes you need we've got drainage gear to do drainage.
And people that read our Turf Talk magazine would have seen an article you've done on your turf washing plant. I know you love talking about your turf washing plant, Max, because it's pretty incredible. So this is a Max Stephenson design and build spec washing plant. So for those that don't know, when you put turf into sports fields, because turf's not grown on the most perfect sand base, sports profiles, they build these beautiful sand bases to spec. They expect the farm soil to be washed off the product and delivered to site. So washing turf can be a big issue, particularly when you've got to wash lots of it. So what'd you build?
Well, we started washing turf back in early 2000s because everything that goes on a golf green was washed. Mm-hmm. So we built our first washer back in the early 2000s. I got an order for 3,000 metres on a Wednesday, and the Friday before, and I realised I had to build a washing machine. So I built the washing machine in 4 days for that.
Yeah, right.
And then we improved on that with a combination of my ideas and what other people use for washing. And then about 2 years ago, we knew we had a contract coming for where we had to wash 80,000 metres of kikuyu for a racetrack.
Right.
And it was going to be 3,000 metres a day, 4 days a week until the job was done. I had to make something where people didn't get tired, they didn't get as wet as they used to get on our other machine.
Yeah.
Because we knew it was all going to be washed in winter. So we had to keep our staff, try and keep our staff drier, and just make it all so much easier. So we built a brand new washer and put unstackers and reloaders on it.
Right.
To make it easier.
Now, how much turf can you wash a day with this now?
Yesterday we washed 3,000 metres in just over 5 hours.
And what was the first one you built? How quick was it?
The first one I built, we washed about 1,000 metres a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going a bit better now.
We're going a bit better now.
So,
yeah, we've progressed.
So sports turf aside, another big thing you do is obviously you supply turf to the retail market. Now, you've been in this game a long time now, several decades. How's the journey for turf grass getting to the retail customer changed for you?
It's got harder, more difficult. Mm-hmm. Back when I started turf, it was easy. Marketing and advertising consisted of a Yellow Pages ad. That's all you did.
Yeah.
You put a Yellow Pages ad in, the phone rang, you took orders, you delivered turf. As we all know, Yellow Pages is basically defunct. Mm-hmm. Along with Yellow Pages, you could run a TV campaign, and that increased things very well.
Yeah.
Because back then there was 4 channels, free channels you could advertise on.
Yeah.
And so people only didn't have all this streaming and all these other channels. And
so selling the stuff's got harder, but growing it and transporting it's probably got a little bit easier for you.
Growing and transporting it's the same.
Right.
But selling it, marketing has got very difficult.
Yeah. So what is Twinview Turf in the retail market now? What varieties do you grow and sell? What do you specialise in at the moment? Do you want me to hold up placards or something for you?
No, I'm just being a stirrer. No, the bulk of our retail is Sir Walter Dino certified, Tiff Tough, Sagrange.
Yeah.
We're doing quite a bit of Sagrange.
Yeah.
And a lot of Nullarbor Cooch.
Yeah, right. Because it's a pretty good climate to grow grass in where you are, aren't you? You don't really have a dormancy period as such. I know there's issues associated with heat, but you grow all year round where you are, don't you?
We mow basically every week of the year.
Yeah.
Every now and then in mid-July, early July, we'll have a period where we don't have to mow for 10 days.
Yeah.
But other than that, we've got to mow every week.
Yeah. Yes, it's a lot different to many other parts of the country where grass goes dormant, loses a lot of colour, you stop mowing it. North of Brizzy, you're pretty warm, so you keep
Yeah,
going.
we lose a little bit of colour, but our biggest problem is heat in summer.
Yeah.
And in summer, we'll be mowing 3 times a week to keep it short.
To keep it going. Now,
especially in January, February.
You'd have more different varieties of turf grasses in your farm than probably any other farm in Australia, I think.
Yeah, I don't think many other farms are growing as many varieties as us.
Because of the diverse range of markets you service.
Well, the thing that makes us more diverse is probably the extra that we're growing that others aren't growing is the 2 Gulf green grasses.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Most people are growing 2 zoysias now, one green cooch and 1 buffalo, St Augustine grass.
And you're a second generation farmer? Is that what we'd call you? Your dad farmed a bit?
No, my dad farmed a lot. My dad was a farmer through and through.
Yeah.
His dad was farmed a bit.
And now where I'm getting at now is there's a next generation of Stephensons in the business as well. Your son Lawrence. And
my eldest son Lawrence manages our business. He manages all that bullshit marketing stuff that I absolutely detest.
Right.
And he manages the staff because he does a nicer job of it than me. He's not quite as blunt sometimes.
I think you'd be very pleasant to deal with sometimes, Max. I've been on the end of a couple of Max shellackings and I can tell you it's not very nice sometimes, but you're always direct to the point. I'll give you that. You know exactly where you stand. So what are you seeing since Lawrence has come into the business? What's it like having a next generation of Stephenson enter the family business? What's that feel like for you?
Oh, it feels great because it totally removes all my worries about marketing and all my worries about staff management.
Right. You just handball that to Lawrence.
Just handball that to Lawrence. And he looks after all the accounting and all that.
Yeah.
I just make sure that we've got the machineries working, we've got the projects happening properly.
Yeah.
And we've got grass growing.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So your job is 100% on farm and on site.
Basically 100% on farm and on site.
Yeah.
And I don't really have anything to do now with the day-to-day growing of grass. Paul manages that, our farm manager.
Yeah.
I just sort of oversee what's happening on the farm and new projects like involved in getting we're about to get recycled water for our farm. So I work on doing all the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like last year I spent 5 or 6 months building the washing plant.
Yeah.
The year before that I built special trailers because we had a big oval job that we needed special trailers for.
Right. You're an engineer?
No.
A bush engineer.
I'm a high school dropout and I've just learnt so much in my life.
And further from Turf of Australia, I've been lucky enough to travel overseas with you a number of times. If anyone that wants any advice, if you ever get the opportunity to get in a car with Max Stephenson in the US, don't. It's a frightening experience. But we've had a lot of fun. You've had a lot of experience with the US turf industry. What have you taken back from the States in particular over the years for your business?
One of the big things I took back was we got Tiff Eagle, which is a warm season putting green grass. Yeah. And also going to the States in the 2000s, it meant you were fully up to date with what was happening in mechanisation of harvesting. Because from 2001 to 2000 and probably about 2007 was when the massive leaps forward were made in the US from hand-stacked pallets to machine-stacked pallets by Trebro and Brower and that. Yeah. So being there, witnessing those changes meant you knew what you wanted to buy and import.
You're very well recognised when you go to the US now by our US friends. You tell them Max coming and they get a different sort of look on their face. I don't know what you'd exactly call that look, but how many times do you reckon you've been back and forth now?
I've probably been to US turf shows 20, 25 times.
You are a very well-travelled man. Why don't you tell everyone, just jumping away from turf for a second, you've been pretty well all over the world.
No, long way from all over the world.
What do you do when you travel now? What do you take with you and what's the fun you have?
I've only been to 86 countries.
Is that all?
That's all.
Okay.
And there's 192.
Divide that by 10 and subtract 5 and that's what most people have been to.
Probably. Yeah, Australia, New Zealand and Bali.
Yeah. But what do? You do something pretty cool.
Yeah, since 2010, between myself and my son, my youngest son, and myself and wife, we've driven a 100-year-old car, basically a lot of places around the world. London to Cape Town, Bangkok to Helsinki, all up through the Amazon, all down through Argentina, Brazil, Chile.
How'd you get into this?
I got into by doing a Peking to Paris rally in a 1923 car, and then I found it was a great way to travel, and I just spent a lot of time travelling.
I said before I've seen you drive. What's your repair bill like? Because I'd imagine it'd be pretty steep.
No, that's a bit high.
But it's a 100-year-old car. How do you get this thing around? So you've talking Bangkok to Helsinki. How do you move this car overseas? So
you put it in a shipping container and ring someone up, and they take it where you want it. That's all it is.
That's all it is. And you would have had some hairy situations over the years.
We've had a lot of fantastic situations.
Okay.
We've broken down in places, and we've pulled a diff apart and rebuilt the diff in the hotel car park in Bhutan, and you know, we broke down our last trip. We were driving from Bangkok to London, and we'd driven along the back of the Himalayas, and we're in the middle of Kyrgyzstan, and we blew the engine. So, but there's always people around that'll help you, and then we had to ship it home from there during COVID. So that was an interesting experience to get it home.
People can keep up to date with your travels, can't they? Do you?
They used to be. Yeah.
They used to be able to. Don't have it anymore. What's your car called again?
Penny.
That's right. That's right. So. Back away from Penny and back onto turf. Turf as we sort of finish up here. What do you see for the future of not only Twin View Turf but the Australian turf industry for the next sort of 5-10 years? Where do you see it going? Do you see any major changes, or you think we've just gone through a major period of change? What do you see for the turf industry in Max Stephenson's opinion?
I hope there's not too many more changes. I'm getting too old for changes. No. The turf industry, I think, has still got another 5 or 10 years of strong growth in it. There'll be some little bumps in the road, but the population is getting bigger in Australia. Immigration is big. All of these people need somewhere to live. They either got to live in a unit or a house. They have to have somewhere to play sport, so that has to get done. We're lucky that probably Australia, from places I've seen in the world, Australia has a higher percentage of sporting fields per population than anywhere else I've been in the world. Leaves England for dead, leaves most of Europe for dead, probably because they don't have space, and definitely leaves the American system for dead.
Yeah. And you're still working pretty hard now? You're still on the farm every day that you're here?
No, lately I've been renovating a house for the last 12 months.
Okay,
but when that job's finished in a few weeks' time, I'll be back. I'll be still at the farm every day.
And that's the plan going forward, or are you just going to jump in the car and travel 365 days a year? Or?
Well, now that COVID, no, I'll never travel 365 days a year. Before COVID, I was travelling about 25 weeks a year. Not continuously, but I was outside of Australia for 25 weeks of the year, made up as 4 or 5 or 3 or 2, 5 trips.
Yeah.
I'd like to get back to that.
Yeah.
Or travelling around Australia and that.
And while talking about travel, one country you haven't been to that you'd love to go to?
West Africa.
West Africa.
But probably not going to get there.
Yeah, right. Penny's not going to make it?
West Africa's a little bit unstable.
Okay. Might have to shore up Penny's defences a little bit before.
No, it's not that. Just, you've got to come to grips with the fact that it's high risk.
Right. Sure. Well, it's a great story. It's a great success story. It's a credit to you. It's a credit to your family. It's a credit to your business for what you guys have done from pretty humble beginnings to probably one of the biggest and most premier turf producers in Australia. It's no small feat, so we've got to congratulate you on your success and your story, and we really, thank you for sharing it with us today. I've known you for a long time, Max. You used to stir me up when I was a 2-year-old kid, and now you stir me up when I'm a 30-year-old male.
I taught you how to play chess when you were about 7.
I'm terrible at chess, so
you were a lot better after we played for a bit.
We had some.
We played a lot of chess together when you were a kid.
Had some good fun over the years. It was good. But thanks for jumping on the podcast, and congrats with everything you've done, and we appreciate you sharing your story. Really good. Thanks, Max.
No worries.
Awesome story.
So who else are you roping into this?